Who's ready to watch some Star Citizen live, folks? An hour and 4 minutes with the vehicle team. One of them being an artist. One of them's an artist. This guy's an artist, right? So, I'm gonna put myself over there. That might be the best spot. Let's see. No programmer? Oh, okay, cool. Oh, I didn't even notice he changed his hair until he did that.
I was just doing it until David laughed. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour at the end of our week and we sit down with some of our developers. Sometimes we play the cool new video games that they're working on. Sometimes we showcase a little bit of their work process. And other times, on our Ask the Devs specials, we actually invite members from our development teams on and we take questions from you, the Star Citizen community, and put them directly to the developers. And that's what we're doing today.
Oh,
on the show today, we have two members from our esteemed vehicle gameplay team, formerly the vehicle.
I didn't get the opportunity to ask a question, but honestly, I don't think I had any questions I wanted to ask these guys.
Experience team, but now called the vehicle gameplay team because if you change the name, it just seems like you're making progress. We got Johnny and Richard. Johnny, Richard, how you doing?
Damn, that was pretty savage. Are they not making progress? You know, are we pretending for them to make progress? Is that why we've been doing this?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks.
Yeah,
it's great to be back.
Good. Is there an actual difference between the gameplay and the experience team? It's pretty much the same folks, right? Doing the same mission.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same team. I mean, we formed the vehicle experience team. What was it, 3 years ago?
Yes.
Sorry, guys, for the Twitch stream. How's the volume? Because it's a little low in my ears, but the volume looks okay on the bars for me.
Yeah, and then we had, and then basically we basically had a shift to squadron. And we've got that to
make
a
it a
point,
bit higher.
We've kind of reformed on the PU side to focus on the vehicle gameplay for the PU.
Yeah, it's you guys did your time in the trenches for Squadron for a while. You got the vehicle experience there where it needed to be. Now you're coming back here. There's a renewed focus on the PU with the members of your team, and that's a little bit about what we're going to talk today. We put a thread up in Spectrum, which is the bespoke communication platform available on robertspaceindustries.com. If you haven't checked it out, you can do so. Where we collected questions all week. Then we let Rich and Johnny pick their own questions this week. We gave them the thread and we said, pull the ones that you actually have answers for. For instance, questions like, how's the 600i rework coming along? That's a question for the vehicle content team, the people who make the spaceships, not the vehicle gameplay team who create the gameplay around and stuff like that. So they won't be answering questions like those. Just in case you're wondering why my question didn't get picked or why other questions did. We're looking exclusively at operational gameplay stuff related to the vehicles that are currently flyable or drivable in the verse today. So without further ado, because you guys did pick quite a few questions, I'm very proud of you for doing so. We're just going to jump right.
Oh, did I miss a part where because I was dealing with the volume where they said that they shifted to Squadron? Yeah, I'll scroll back and listen to what he said, and then we'll come back to where we are now, which is 249.
And then we had, and then basically we basically had a shift to Squadron. And we've got that to a certain point. We've kind of reformed on the PU side to focus on the vehicle gameplay for the PU.
Yeah, it's
to fix the vehicle gameplay for the PU. Okay.
You guys did your time in the trenches for Squadron for a while. Got the vehicle experience there where it needed to be. Now you're coming back here. There's a renewed focus on the PU. Jump right in no particular order.
I don't think that's on purpose. What I mean is I don't think that was planned. I think that is reactionary to the funding that Star Citizen has been receiving over the last year. I think the full shift of the company to Squadron is a problem. And it caused a problem, and I think they are addressing it in a way that is reactionary, or somebody's made fun of the way that I use the word reactionary. Maybe I don't quite understand the definition, but it is a reaction to the funding that Star Citizen has caused. I've imagined that somebody in the company was like, whoa, maybe we should focus on our cash cow a little bit more, and maybe a little bit less on Squadron now. But yeah.
Is there a gameplay reason to not have a rotational decoupled mode? Some people would really appreciate it. Possibly this person who's asking.
Probably. So yeah, we have experimented with this.
Can we explain what a rotational... What was it? A rotational decoupled mode? What does that even mean? This is why I didn't ask any questions. This is like all the DCS nerds, I think, that are like, you know, the space simmy stuff.
Internally. We did some play tests with it. And it turns out it's really hard to control. It's very difficult to work out which direction you're actually rotating, especially if you start combining rotations. Like imagine you start rolling, and then halfway through that you start pitching, and then halfway through that you start yawing. All of a sudden your rotational axis is completely different from what you think forward is. Mm-hmm. And then the by far easiest way to stop rotating is just to hold.
Oh, maintaining. Oh, so decoupled, if I roll, I'll keep rolling. If I pitch, I keep pitching, instead of essentially decoupled is, you know, forward, back, left, right, up, down. Understood. Okay, thank you.
Space break and just stop and start again. So we've tested this and tried a couple of approaches and stuff. For now, the plan is not to add one of these in with the normal decoupled mode. We feel coupled rotation is more controllable on average, and a more intended experience. But we could have, just spitballing, it could be used as like a malfunction of IFCS in future. All of your rotations get completely unlocked, and then you're just spinning. And then the thrusters start firing, and you have to manually fight against it. That could be quite cool. But yeah, no plans for that at the moment.
What do you think, Rich? You agree? It sounds like a skill issue to me.
Yeah,
get good.
Yeah, you know, I think you should get
Jared
good
was reading Twitch
now.
chat.
No, you know, it was really difficult to fly. You know, and it made the experience quite jarring. But you know, that could be a case of us not, you know, going to implement it, you know, quite correctly. But you know, it's definitely something, you know, we can relook at in the future. But you know, for now, we're going to focus on, you know, the kind of core flight experience that we have.
Yeah, one aspect is we were prototyping it for sure. So there could be any number of ways to make it more readable. Extra UI widgets, extra space dust, more visual.
Yeah, more things on the fucking screen. That's what we need.
Effects, something. But with our prototype, at least, we felt it was better going down other avenues instead.
Yeah, it's not to say it's completely ruled out for the future. I mean, if there's any constant in game development, we always like to say it's change. But at the moment...
No. You only say.
There are just bigger fish to fry, and we're pretty happy just developing the experience that we have and going from there. Next question. Was the Mobi-Glass button switch to tab inspired by Starfield? Hey, I said Starfield in the show.
Can we get away with that? Sure.
What are they going to do? I've been here this long. If they were going to get rid of me, it would have been for much better things.
Yeah.
So was the Mobi-Glass button switch to tab inspired by Starfield?
No. That came from a push internally from our Arena Commander team. They really want the scoreboard to be on tab to match how lots of players find that in other games as well, to sort of match what the industry ends up doing. So they had a real hard push for this, of like, if we do this, what would it mean? You know, where could we put other things that make sense on the keyboard? And there's so many controls already that we have to move something somewhere else.
Pressing space to jump is inspired by Starfield. Is pressing W to move forward inspired by Starfield?
So So instead of instead of tab being the ping wave, the decision that we landed on was to have tab open the scoreboard in Arena Commander, match that kind of expected behavior, and then that moved to V or hold V. I've forgotten exactly what they did, and then because there isn't a scoreboard in PU, there's now just tab that doesn't do anything. So like, what PU specific feature could we stick on tab as well? And we thought about it for a bit, and I'm like, oh, mobiGlass works. That'll do.
Well, it was really simple like that, but it was quite a tense 3 weeks while we debated it.
There was a few back and forths of people being not convinced by moving the scoreboard button, the knock-ons of moving, like people use tab for pinging all the time.
Did they just say they talked about it for 3 fucking weeks? No wonder we don't have a fucking game. They talked about moving a tab inventory button for 3 weeks. No wonder we don't have anything.
So the knock-ons of that, and there was a lot of back and forth of trying to work out like what the actual best idea would be with it. So we've gone for this for now, and if it turns out,
yeah, I think overall Star Citizen doesn't have a lot of keybinds.
no, it's
It's a real.
Yeah, okay. Now, listen, what I've said up to this point is it doesn't matter where they put their default keybinds because you're just going to customize them to what you want anyway, and CIG gives them the opportunity to do so. So just who cares? Put it wherever you want, but give us full, customization over it. My only argument right now is I think VoIP's a very important thing, and I think VoIP is on a keybind that is, on some keyboards doesn't even exist and just isn't a good place for it. That would be my only change out of everything we currently have.
Relatively simple game.
yeah, you only need to do 3 things.
I know some people who play it on a controller or a gamepad.
Yeah, which is the reason we have all these crappy changes to flight and shit, right? Just kidding, but yeah.
Hi, Anna.
Anna? Wait, Anna Dimitriou plays Star Citizen on a gamepad? No. Anna, no. Really? I'm deleting the podcast with her.
Let's move next. Sergeant Lobster 07 says, it literally is live, though. Jared has addressed questions from the chat before. Lies. Have you started work on the Nautilus mine launch system?
We've done some mines specifically, just the mines right now. They are set up and working in the engine at the moment, but we haven't.
Because mines are 1,000% in Squadron 42. They were in every single Wing Commander game. That is why. So in a lot of, they sell ships to make money, and they sold a random ship called the Nautilus that lays mines to make money. But it also was 100% going to be in the in Squadron 42 because mines would 1,000% be a mechanic. So they might as well sell a ship for it, right? So that's like one of the only like really kind of derpy, weird ships that they sold that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the PU so far, the way I understand it. That like almost made sense. But yeah, let's not lie. I think what's good is he's been pretty honest. We've only done the mines. So he says exactly what it is, Started
development, like active development on the launcher itself. We've been spitballing some ideas back and forth over the few months. But we haven't got active development on that right now, no.
And of course,
and like, here's the only thing I wish they would add, and we don't plan on, like, it's not coming in a release anytime soon. I really wish they would just add those caveats in. Like, this thing isn't anywhere near release, guys. It's not on our like major release schedule right now.
If you're wondering what ships are in active development, we encourage you to always check out the public roadmap, not just the.
That roadmap is worthless for these situations.
Release view, but the development view that actually shows what teams are on what and stuff like that. Short of surprise ships that you've never heard of, if it's a ship that you're aware of that exists, you can see whether it's being worked on actively, right there on the public roadmap. Shout out to Jake from the community team who maintains that.
Yes, like all the other things that, apparently have been being worked on for 14 years straight and still aren't, I don't know. The way that roadmap reads, it doesn't read well. It's very hard to read. And it sucks. So shout out to Shiny Hobo, who has his website that tries to make it a little bit easier, but it's still just, yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got? Why did you choose the Aegis Gladius as the test subject for master modes instead of starter ships like the Aurora and Mustang?
That's a good question. I mean,
that is not a good question because you've answered it 75,000 times.
Like it's basically our reference ship internally, because it's the most popular ship for us. It's our baseline ship, and it's got specific handling where it's got a broad sense of kind of skills and and purpose for that ship. So it was just a really good ship from a handling perspective, because it's got a mix of fixed thrusters, rotational thrusters, and the speed of it just made sense of where we wanted to kind of test combat.
Okay, I'll take it back. He didn't take because it's our Squadron 42 hero ship. He gave a really good answer so far of, it's kind of like, why did you choose the Stanton system? Because it's got a bit of everything. Cool.
So that's, but, we did pick the Gladius, but we also picked other ships from different kind of categories as well, tested at the same time. But
why aren't we testing those ships?
Yeah, it's the most well set up ship with master modes in mind at the moment. We've tested, as Rich said, we've tested a bunch of other ones. Like we've had some tuning set up for a Hornet. We've had some tuning set up for 300i, and then a few bigger ships as well. We tested out the Vanguard, the Constellation. There was a few others. There was a bunch of them after a while, and trying to fit what the niche.
Do you think the Hornet got bugged in 319 because of their internal tests for other things? Not bugged, but the Hornet has some insane acceleration that it shouldn't have, so it's become a very meta ship. I wonder if that's because of these tests, the number was accidentally changed on live.
Is for each individual ship, like what the max speed can be in this specific master mode, what the thrusters can do. The Constellation has a bunch of different turrets on it and stuff. How does that affect it? That kind of thing. Just to get we ended up doing playtests with what happens if we have 2 fully manned Constellations against 5 Gladiuses and see what happens. And then does that match what our expectations end up being? How does a 300i fight against a Gladius? What should it be doing? Those kind of things. So right now the Gladius is the core example. It's the core example as well because it's the main ship in Squadron. So
okay, yeah, there you go.
Master Mode was developed for Squadron, so that's a major reason as well. But yeah, there's a bunch of other ships that we've prototyped at least. We haven't just focused on just the Gladius at least.
I find it so interesting that Master Modes was developed for Squadron. I think the way he says that is a little funky because it's definitely was first developed in Squadron, but I really feel like it was developed for PvP. That the intention of going in that direction was very much because of the PvP was lacking so much at these insane speeds.
Okay. Let's see. Then as a follow-up to this, can you tell us what multi-crew ship will be the first one to be tested on master modes?
Oh, that's a good question. Sounds like Akani.
You picked these questions.
Well, yeah, we did, didn't we?
I let you come up with this
Wait,
list.
they picked the questions and now they don't want to answer it?
This was on you.
Yeah.
So what we can say is we have tested quite a few multi-crew ships. And what that ends up being in the end, we'll decide at the time. But it's going to depend on what ship fits to kind of test and test purpose in the game mode we test as well. So we'll just make a pretty good, a good guess at the time of what ship, that is best fitted to that game mode, basically.
But they know. This is so grimy. They know they're doing it at CitizenCon and they don't want to share it and they want to tease it for you to be excited. Is anyone excited? Is anyone pogging?
Because as Johnny said, we did lots of tests where we had a couple of constellations versus quite a few other ships. So it depends what other ship we might use as well. Because we'll put these tests out there with like a specific goal to find out information, that will help us develop the future. Because we've got to a really good place for light fighters, medium heavy fighters, but the kind of multi-crew experience is still one that we're still kind of figuring out as well. Because it's quite complex because you've got multiple guns, you've got multiple armory, and then we've also got the resource network.
Every large multi-crew ship is incredibly different from one another as well. Like a Hammerhead versus a Reclaimer, two very different ships.
Work as well, coming in the future, and that's going to really change the multi-crew experience. So, we're really figuring out what that means for the gameplay. So, we're going to have to make some choices based on what works best for those features and our purposes with the test as well.
Yeah. So for those just joining the show, we are sitting with the vehicle gameplay team. We're looking at the chat here. A couple questions
like, dude, what was the first ship that came to mind with the way that they responded to that question? I'll tell you mine in a moment, but yeah, just the way they're acting makes me seem like it's something that they're very proud of.
Like how are modular ships going? When will we have modularity in the game? Those are actually questions for the vehicle content team, the people who build the ships, as opposed to the people who are here fine-tuning gameplay and aspects like that. So just in case again you're wondering why some questions are being addressed and others aren't. Gameplay.
I'm thinking the Idris. Yeah. I don't know why, but that's the way they responded is making me think the Idris for some reason.
Content team.
The way they were so like,
team.
We got a sneaky surprise for you at CitizenCon. But yeah.
Many teams. This is this one. For instance, is there going to be a way or a method to unflip vehicles that have been put upside down or on their sides, like a wrench or something? Sometimes vehicles stay on their sides and won't correct no matter what force you put on them.
The answer is yes. So we'd like to use the tractor beams to move the vehicles over, but we've basically just moved the ground vehicles to a new set of physics. And basically this has meant the old system we had to correct them back on the wheels doesn't work anymore.
Tractor beams.
It's a completely new set of physics. But we do definitely have plans to be able to use the in-game tools to rewrite the vehicles, because it makes no sense to be able to stick in the middle of nowhere and have nowhere, to create a vehicle back on the wheels. So that's definitely something we're going to look into in the future.
Do you know what you can look into? Removing all the random rocks that are there for no reason, that are speckled across the world, that literally fade in and out around you in a bubble. Like, you can see them fading in and out. It is such a bad experience from every level, from visual to physical to everything. They are terrible, dude, and they are blanketed across every planet. Like, there's like no flat ground anywhere. It's kind of brutal, man. There's like very little flat ground. You're always maneuvering around rocks, and it's just like that's kind of unrealistic, like, I don't know. Come on.
It's just quite a challenge now because we've got
but at the same time, hopefully bigger tractor beams, vehicle tractor beams. I'm just thinking what's it called? The big race, the Daymar Rally, right? You just have a ship with a vehicle tractor beam. When your buddy flips over, you just flip him back, and we keep on moving.
Some new physics that is much more kind of based in reality. Where as before, the physics was quite simple. We had a very simple suspension system, a very kind of dampened kind of body system where the body didn't really move around that much. Whereas now,
I also don't mind if vehicles flip, but the fact that your entire existence in a ground vehicle is avoiding flipping is not a very good experience. That's all I'm saying.
I've got a proper vehicle where you move it up, it's got kind of a real feel to it, and it's got a real weight to it. So we've got to balance the tools to be able to do that.
Stop pausing. Stop
quite
modding.
Difficult, kind of, to basically try and make a vehicle flip back over and land on its wheels as intended.
These mods these
Yeah,
days.
I mean, as with
getting
the
very
whole things
demanding.
in Star Citizen, we don't want just a automagical solution. The fact that they try to correct themselves now is a necessary, evil, if you will, to try to keep people playing, to try to keep the experience positive. But whenever possible, we always want to seek these integrated solutions, these diegetic solutions that make sense within the world. And I think a tractor beam is an obvious, one.
Yeah.
It's literally, it's right there. It's one of those things, people like to make fun of us, beam citizen or whatever. That's literally one of the things no, that's where beam citizen is absolutely appropriate for fixing that kind of situation. So
Yeah,
excited to hear that's
a tractor beam is the only beam that makes sense in Star Citizen. We cannot hate on tractor beams. It's the one thing that exists in many sci-fi experiences and I think is totally fine. The mining beam, the healing beam, the salvage beam, very much less so.
At least being considered. And then as a follow-up to the content question, who was it? Somebody had it in the chat, and I wanted to shout them out.
Does that count as a mic reference?
They had it. They had it right on there. I lost your name. I'm sorry, but somebody was talking about how basically, for modularity as an example, there's the feature team that would work on the feature of being able to swap out modules and whatever. Then that goes to the content team, who then build them into the ships, and then it goes to something like the gameplay team, who then can figure out the gameplay applications and how that reflects to the player. So
that's literally that sounds to me like one of the worst ways to do it. Am I crazy? But shouldn't the gameplay team design the gameplay, and then the feature team implement it? I'm confused. Why aren't we figuring out how the gameplay is first? I'm so confused.
There's this
Why
nice
do we
little
do
pipeline
this?
there between features are the things that everybody can sort of work with. The content team build them into the ship, and then you guys come in and and make it an experience for the players.
Why aren't we starting with the experience from the players? For the players.
Ruka Ribi. I think that was his name. Ruka. You know how good I am with names. It's just somebody in the chat had it, and I wanted to call them out, and I lost the name. While we're on the subject of master modes, we weren't on the subject. We had moved over, so that wasn't a very good transition at all. How will QED work with master modes?
So the
where would you start other than the attended player experience? Exactly where Star Citizen does. Look at the space station around him. Right? This space station was designed without any cargo deck gameplay involved, without any refueling or repair gameplay involved, without any bounty hunter gameplay involved, which is less so. It seems like they've done a decent job with that from what we've seen. Medical, healing, all these things. So things are jammed into these experiences after the art's made, and sometimes it doesn't work that well because of
for
that.
both
That's all I'm
aspects
saying.
of this. There's the player who's firing the QED or using the QED, and there's a player who's going to be on the other end of it, essentially being pulled out or dampened. So for the person who's using it, the idea is it's going to be
Wait, what was this question? Because now he's talking about QEDs.
Aspects of this. There's
On the subject of for the player, that was his name. Had it, and I wanted to call them out, and I lost the name.
Okay.
While we're on the subject of master modes, we weren't on the subject. We had moved over, so that wasn't a very good transition at all. How will QED work with master modes?
Oh, how will QED work with master modes? Okay.
So for both aspects of this, there's the player who's firing the QED or using the QED, and there's a player who's going to be on the other end of it, essentially being pulled out or dampened. So for the person who's using it, the idea is it's going to be, or the current idea anyway, will be in SCM mode, along with a bunch of other things, so that you're in SCM, you've got the QED active, and then that's when you can use it, and along with lots of the other, the combat stuff is all in SCM. That's the intention at the moment. So you can still do all the same, everything else. You have the dampener, you have the snare, everything works the same way from that end. And then on the other side, the person who's being pulled out or dampened, the current working plan will be that when you get pulled out, essentially the quantum drive will be disabled or restricted somehow, because a lot of the internals of master modes doesn't necessarily care about which mode you're actually in directly. It's if your quantum drive is active. That's what quite a lot of the things are. So for example, if you're in nav mode, but you've turned your quantum drive off for some reason, or it's been blown off or damaged or distorted or whatever else, you will still lose, you won't have access to those top speeds because the quantum drive's off. So that's what the restriction is.
Interesting. So the quantum drive is determining your speeds?
So if you're in nav mode and you get quantum dampened or quantum snared, your quantum drive is going to be off and you're going to be limited to SCM speeds for that time period. And then you can swap back to SCM mode yourself and then go try and defend yourself. That's the current plan.
Okay, so he says for that time period. So he also said that the quantum dampener is going to work the same way. It's very interesting because it sounds like a tackle, right? It sounds like a tackle. So if I was going to attack a player, or let's say it's a big piracy thing. We've watched plenty of Mongrel Squad videos on this channel, right? Where they have like 14 guys attacking one cargo ship. They would dampen a guy or get them out of quantum travel. And then you have 2 or 3 people that are in nav mode, but because one of the things about nav mode that I believe is still a thing is you can store your shield capacitor. So when you go into nav mode, your shields go away, but when you come back, they come back pretty quickly if you didn't lose them. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, guys, because I might be. I have very, very limited experience with master modes. I have not tested it much in 320 for various reasons, but I believe that's how it works. So if I was in this scenario, I would dampen somebody. I would have a couple of people with their shields ready to go. I would be in nav mode. I would jump on them while they're quote unquote tackled. It sounds like the way he just said it is that there might be a timer to how long you can tackle somebody, which means now I got to get on them and take down their shields and take them out before that tackle is up and they're able to get back into nav mode and jump up to those speeds, because the ship that's doing the tackling can't go at nav speeds. So this sounds potentially like, even though he said it works the same way, then he also said for that period of time. And there wasn't really a tackle period of time in 319 and earlier. It was a distance thing. So interesting that he would say that.
We still need to test all these kinds of PU specific things, because there's open questions about things like in a pirate versus cargo hauler situation with QED, for example, what kind of, like, how often should the pirate be successful versus how often should the cargo hauler escape? Because historically we've gone back and forth in balance a lot of the time, where the cargo hauler is always able to escape, so the pirate can't really do much, or the other way around.
I mean, dude, a quantum dampening shield on your quantum drive, very expensive. You need really, really, high rep or something like that to get it. But it doesn't work perfectly or anything, but then you also fly at slower speeds when in nav mode, or something like that.
The pirate's always
takes you way longer to get back into.
So we want some middle ground
to get into nav mode or something.
And we're still working to get the exact balance of where everything fits.
And then I have to imagine
that would feel cool.
Stuff like the upcoming resource management system throws that all into array too, because there's the default balancing, but then there's what the tuner does, what the mechanic does to increase those chances on either side and stuff, and how those combine. It's like this person, the attacker has upgraded their ability.
I don't I don't like that Jared's saying any of this stuff. Jared is definitely in many of the meetings, so he has more information than most people at the company, I would imagine, because he's involved in everything. But don't you think that he should leave this to the resource management people to discuss?
To QED, but the cargo person has upgraded their ability to resist, and you got rock versus rock here in the thing. So it's a unique challenge, and I'm excited to see it play out as the work of the EUPU feature team comes to completion, and then it gets handed over to folks of the gameplay team. So yeah, I brought that back. Sometimes I'm good. Not that time though.
I still don't get that from a development standpoint. The EUPU team is the one who does a lot of the coding, I'm assuming then, and the gameplay team is making it fun. But the gameplay team has to tell them what they think is good, right? Beforehand?
No. Are there plans
There's got to be
to
more
change the way
communication going on
ground
than they make
vehicles
seem.
accelerate under analog controls?
Yes. So we spent a lot of time, kind of working on these new physics, which has enabled us to kind of fruit the body of the vehicle so it feels more fluid. And, we've got a brand new time model as well. And this gives us much more fidelity to control the handling. But with that, it means you need much more fidelity in control as well. So, although we've got quite a simple control method right now, where it's just key press, you go full throttle to no throttle. We definitely plan to support, different control methods, so you can go half throttle, quarter throttle to control the slides, and control your speed, control the amount of braking you have and steering you have as well. Because it'll make the ground vehicles feel really good when you got full control over them.
Imagine changing your brake bias. Imagine them bringing you to a place where you're changing your brake bias in Star Citizen. That would be so ridiculous.
As a follow-up to this, it's a bit on the content side, but I'm pretty sure the answer is gameplay related, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. What's holding up something like the Ranger from being implemented in the game?
So we've got to kind of move the physics engine. So we had quite old physics with our old ground vehicles, and they hadn't really been touched for a long time. So we had to go in there, figure out what
this
needs
week,
to be changed.
Cosmo, they're trying to
we've got
push
a baseline. As you can see now, with a new graphical physics, which you're going to play soon, is it's going to feel much more realistic. But that's our first step in terms of feel. So we're going to get the feel right, but we don't have that on the Drake Mule, and we don't have that on the Nova Tank. So
this
we've
coming
got to
week.
move the ground vehicle physics to those vehicles as well first. And then basically it's just time and resources as always. It's, and we've got to make that call when we can, kind of work on a new, kind of vehicle, because it will be not a completely new vehicle because we use the time model and suspension physics and all that stuff for it. But, that kind of vehicle is quite difficult to do because it moves from, kind of four wheels to balance. And that's really hard to do. But that'll, but that's also Johnny's problem as well.
Going from a stable four-wheeler or six-wheeler or whatever to trying to balance on two wheels is very difficult to make fun. So there needs to have a lot of iteration time to make sure that you don't just constantly fall off, for example. And if you go too far the other way and you never
What do
fall
motorcycle
off,
games do?
making that also fun. So we need to find where the balance of all of that across.
I'm confused why we need to find where the balance is when motorcycles have been in video games forever and they've always been fun. Obviously, from a programming perspective, which is what Johnny does, I think that's his name. There's a feel there that those games do well, but maybe it's hard to program. Is maybe what they're saying.
What's the scale of sim through to arcade of a motorbike should land? I think people still don't really know how a bicycle stays up anyway. So how are we going to succeed?
I'm sure somebody does.
Somebody?
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody in Twitch chat knows how a bicycle stays up.
Yeah. We don't want to
just
fake
leave
it
it there,
either.
right?
That's one of the things is, we don't just want to build a car and just animate a bike, because that's what, kind of a lot of people do to get a bike in the game is they'll just make a bike a car and it'll just be animated. But, we want to do it properly.
Of course, we always want to do it properly. And you know what? You end up getting proper shit.
We believe that experience is a much better experience for the final game.
I watched a Vsauce video.
The folks in chat right now are saying
Hey,
gyroscopes.
Vsauce, Michael here.
And I'm gonna tell you, I used to back in the halcyon days of 2002. I used to, as part of my job, I used to ride around on a preview version of a Segway. Remember a Segway? Little two-wheeled things that kept up on a gyroscope. And there was a collection of us, and we had to, each one of us would do something for about 6-7 minutes, and then we'd swap out to somebody else all day. And every single day, we knew one of us was going to get thrown violently to the ground in front of 100 spectators. And it was a terrible, terrible lottery. And 21 years later, I still have the mental scars that just hearing the word gyro makes me derail the entire show and tell this story that absolutely not one person watching cares about. So just
Any askers?
don't put all your faith in gyroscopes.
So when are we going to add segways?
Don't like gyroscopes.
It's derailed the whole show now.
Hey, here's one. Are we going to get better lights on ships? Hey, Pete. Some ships have tons of light in the front, but you can't see 3 feet ahead of you, and some ground vehicles are pretty much dead at night.
Oh my God, this
What
question.
the F?
So yes, we are going to get better lights, and that's something the team's currently working on. It's just a
What?
lot of work to go through all the ships in the game, basically, to do this. To make the balance more correct between them all. Because you're right.
Okay, the previous answer to this question for a very long time was, well, it's a little bit of a battle between the art team and us.
There's some that will blind you. We've had several play tests where someone's turned the lights on and we can't see anything anymore.
Yep.
And then there's other ones where you've got the lights on.
Yeah.
So, that definitely is one of the things we're kind of working on right now.
Yeah,
Like driving
gameplay
a
won
full
the
building
battle.
on
Holy
fog.
shit.
Yeah.
You just can't. You might as well turn them off again.
I've got perennial Star Citizen Live watcher, vehicle art director Ben Curtis. Thanks for watching the show, Ben, in the chat going, yes, headlights are actively being improved. Lighting team are being a huge help, and we are setting standards for different manufacturers. So yeah, so different manufacturers.
Wait, why do we need different manufacturers to have different lights? Just fucking make lights. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Just make lights, light things up. I don't understand this. Why does this company exist in this way?
For lights, imagine what a Drake headlight's going to be. It's just one's going to always be out. Hey,
Just on fire.
Wow.
I happen to love Drake. But
Yeah, me too.
I love Drake because they're broken and busted, like me. Let's see. Will ground vehicles run on fuel, hydrogen, or otherwise be battery powered or vary depending on the vehicle?
Oh,
if
good question.
anything runs on fuel, will there be a gear switching system implemented?
So, yeah, so we basically moved the ground vehicles to new physics vehicles already, and that's our first step to really improving the ground vehicles up to the same specifications as ships.
First step, guys.
Our next kind of ground vehicles V2, as we kind of call it, that would mean the ships run on fuel. They've got a power plant, they have a cooler, and it all works just like the ships. But obviously, it might be different. It might be a different power style, but it will have power. It will require cooling in the same way that ships do.
So it runs on hydrogen fuel? Is that what he
they'll
said?
generate signals as well, in the same way that ships do. Even though it'll be different, kind of radiuses and stuff. But yeah, we're going to convert a ground vehicle to use the full kind of vehicle systems, and that we have, including resource network as well.
Yeah, we definitely want to unify all the kinds of vehicles we have in the game to all sort of work roughly in the same kind of way. So yeah, adding fuel tanks, adding power to them, even things like updating the HUD to be new HUD, because some of the ground vehicle HUDs have been untouched for a while. There's definitely intention to do that kind of thing for sure.
Okay.
We've talked about the vehicle physics, the tire model and stuff. So as a kind of a general follow-up to that, any plans to have a more accurate terrain physics?
Yes. So at the moment we have kind of our base terrain. So we kind of generalize it that it's a mix between kind of high grip gravel probably. But with this brand new model, we've got the ability to kind of change the tire curve a little bit. So we can model driving on ice. You can model driving on tarmac. But we've got to build a system where the time model communicates with the game. So when you are on the textures of the different planets and stuff, it tells the time model what kind of format to use. So we've got to build that for the future, but that's definitely part of the development of the ground vehicles. It just requires like a lot of kind of cross team kind of work to do, because we've got to change the levels to kind of send that information to the ground vehicles, and then the ground vehicles will appropriately handle for those.
Planet Tech V600.
Right, so you're talking about basically taking all of the locations and adding markup to it, so that the vehicle knows whether it's riding on dirt or mud or ice or
water, even stuff like that.
Water.
Yeah, you can drive a little bit of water before you start to float.
Jesus, Carl.
Are you confirming boats here, Richard?
No.
He's not. I'm just putting him on the spot.
Boats with tires.
Yeah, boats with tires.
We talked a lot about boat tanks recently.
Remember swimming tier 0? You guys remember that on the roadmap? Me too.
What?
Yeah, a boat tank would be a good addition to that.
That was like 3 years
Can you
ago.
describe what a boat tank should be
Yeah,
like?
it's like a tank, but
a boat?
It drives on the water.
Does it handle like a tank?
Kind of handles like a battleship.
Okay.
All right. Let's get into some nitty-gritty ones here. Why is the center of mass on the Nova so high over the ground? As in, why does it tip over so easily? Shouldn't the tank be next to impossible to tip? Do you have any idea what the hell you're doing?
Whoa.
So the tank has a lot of mass, and the mass is actually quite low on the tank. But
Not according to this person.
yeah, well, it is physically, but one of the problems that you have in like physics is, so in real life, there's a lot of dampening with kind of collisions, because you're hitting terrain, you're hitting objects that move, and the collision kind of output kind of varies a lot. Whereas in like a physics simulation, you can have quite high like spikes of collisions because it's two interconnecting solid objects. And we need to do a lot of work on how the ground vehicles field interacts, because that's not how real life collisions happen, but that is the output of the physics engine. And basically that causes the vehicle to react in a way what makes it look like it doesn't weigh very much, or it gives you a really high impulse so the vehicle can roll over. And it isn't that it doesn't weigh very much or the center of mass is too high, it's just the collision impulse is so high that it's got the force to kind of tip the vehicle over. But that's definitely something we're working on. And
so is this why when a box collides with a ship very lightly, it's still creating this insane amount of force that is breaking ships? I mean, this sounds like an incredibly problematic thing with the engine overall that is causing knock-on effects across the entire game, right? Like, we've had these issues be issues in many aspects of the game. So it's not necessarily just a problem for Richard here, or his job necessarily. But the fact that he is aware of the problem because of what his job is, it's nice to hear that finally somebody at least tells us what's going on there. I think that's good, but yeah, somebody's got to fix that shit, bro.
we've already done some work on the suspension physics for the ground vehicles. When you hit rocks and stuff, if you had the old physics and you basically reduced the dampening, the vehicles would flip over 13 times. But now we've kind of really worked on the ground vehicle collision physics. When you hit a rock like this, for example, it just kind of rides it. It doesn't go like this. And that's something we've worked on the first stage. And then, a next stage that we'll be working on the general output of the physics engine to not generate these really high impulses that are just not accurate.
Okay.
But it does create a perception issue. We are aware of that.
Maybe that will affect.
We were playing on Arena Commander last week. There was that gravity bug on.
Oh.
Was it Gila? just like,
Yeah.
you knew there was a
wheelies in the tank. It was
like
really
you
fun.
knew there was a gravity bug on Gila. Yeah. So why did you? Just tanks floating everywhere. It's a good show. Sternhund in the chat says, will we eventually be able to land our Pisces on our Carracks and refuel there? Please, dear God, give me something.
I'm going to give you something.
Is that a threat? That's a good question,
Yeah.
probably for a content team, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hypothetically,
Buck
yeah.
passes here.
How is that not a gameplay thing? This is what confuses me about all the teams. If you decide the gameplay, I'm confused. I'm confused. Call marketing Keck. What is this? Why don't we know the answers to these questions? I'm just confused by this. It, like, for me, my initial thought process was, well, there's nowhere to refuel from. Maybe he means that it's a question for the team that's working on resource management. Like, are they going to allow that to be a process? But this is why things don't work. Why is everybody so separated and not working on things together? I'm just so confused. It doesn't feel like a team. It feels like a bunch of little teams working on things and not talking to each other. Everything feels so confusing with everything about this game. If I'm on a vehicle gameplay team, I feel like I should know exactly the gameplay intentions for the Anvil Carrack, right? Like, that's the part that I'm so confused by. And this is like, yeah, SaltEMike doesn't know game development, and I'm sort of out there begging for answers about game development and why things like this happen. And what is the disconnect? What is the puzzle piece that I'm missing about why this makes sense? Because I can't make sense of it. Right? Yeah, it just seems like there's like this insane red tape that's blocking the game from existing. And it's really frustrating. Also, I'm grabbing this as a thumbnail for Weekend Review, right? Not for Weekend Review, but for this React, actually. It's a perfect one.
Yeah.
I tried Sternhund.
I'm opening Photoshop.
Right. Are there any plans for internal reloading of ballistic weapons, especially for ships like the Redeemer that possess some internal storage?
Yes, good question. Holy shit,
So
Photoshop
this is
open.
definitely something we've talked about internally, because obviously, we moved towards a system with limited ammo, and that had a big impact on the game. And we do think it's a really positive thing, but we would, we definitely like it, because we've talked about it internally. We'd like a system where, people can reload the ammo on the ship. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, having like ammo boxes and extra items and stuff. So you've only got a set limit of ballistic ammo in your first clip, essentially. And then you reload that, and then you reload it again. Oh no, suddenly I'm out of ammo. Jeff in the back needs to go and fit the box onto the front gun again, and you have...
Yeah, I like this. I mean, anybody, if you've played Void Crew, it's a new game that's come out in like the last week. That's a thing in the turrets. Right next to the turret is something where you can add more ammo. So you either have another player on your crew, or the player in the turret gets out, reloads, and does it again. It's actually quite fun.
This sort of cycle of like multi-crew stuff going back and forth. It'd be really, really cool. Yeah.
Get your shit together, Jeff.
Jeff the ammo guy, pulling his weight.
Radio silence. What's going on here?
I lost where I
Are
was.
you broken?
Are you
Will there
broken?
be any more changes to hover vehicles to help stop them from exploding so easily? I mean,
Yes. Yeah. So we did.
do they hover because they're full of helium?
That'd be
they'll
one way
keep-
to stop it.
Yeah.
They just
So we did
float
like a
off.
big change. When was it now? Like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe.
Yeah.
And that really increased the speed of the hover bikes on the ground. So before they were quite limited. I think you could go like 68 meters per second, like max, I think, with the old ones. But then we made it so you could go really quick with the new ones. But obviously that means you can hit a rock, and if you're traveling at that speed, you hit a rock, it's quite an impact. But we can definitely improve that from our side. And also we can improve the levels as well. So we can instruct the players more like where to kind of ride these things.
There's nowhere to ride. There's fucking rocks everywhere. Listen, Rich, I am a huge fan of this guy. I love this guy. Please please, 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 and I know that this must be incredibly difficult at this company in particular, there's got to be a way that you can pull rank here on the art team. This is insane. It's insane. Ground object scattering needs a major rework. Yes. They're everywhere, bro. There's nowhere to avoid. There are so few places, so few biomes on the planets that are free of debris. Like, even on Daymar, which is just a desert, there's fucking rocks sticking out of the sand everywhere.
You know, because at the moment, you know, our terrain, it's, you know, you've got rocks everywhere, but it'd be cool if you could have, you know, areas where you can, you know, that are intentionally made for these bikes and stuff like that. So No. There should be areas that are intentionally made to not allow for ground vehicles. It shouldn't be the opposite way around. That seems so weird to me. I'm about to stand up, right? Like, yeah, we don't need more intentionally made racetracks. We need the game to intentionally make sense for the fun that we participate in, you know? You know, that'd really help, along with improving the general collision detection again. It's just, you get really high impulse of collision, and, you know, and that just means the vehicle will explode.
Yeah. Yeah, there's already some assists in Gravlev that are trying to help with this kind of thing.
Yeah, they haven't succeeded very much, though.
If the current one is just like it sees a thing in front of it and it slows down, or it tries to like ride over it. It's one or both. I forget exactly. But there's a bunch of things that we
100%.
tried to help the problem when we initially did that remake.
And I don't know what kind of pull the artists have had over the last years, but it's probably, we made this game $600 million. But you know what? The fact that art has superseded the gameplay for so many years is starting to catch up to them. And we're starting to finally see that this year. They're still going to make over $100 million or something, which is insane. But for the first time ever, we're seeing them make less money. And yeah, they're getting what they deserve.
You know, some rocks are very big and come at you really fast. So yeah, the speeds can be like deceptive sometimes, because like 200 meters a second is quite fast if you're on essentially a quad bike. So if you drive a quad bike into a rock at 200 meters a second, it might explode. But yeah, it comes down to like another like perception thing of you know, you want the fantasy of flying this hover vehicle over terrain and really
you
cool
want the
and,
Star Wars
like,
experience.
trying not to crash into things. And then if you just nip like a tiny bit of rock, and then because you're going so
audio. I mean, that's definitely on their end, right?
I mean, it's something as simple as raising the durability.
We could like quintuple the health. There we go.
I mean, they laugh, but that probably is one of the better solutions, right?
I'm sorry?
We just lost sound for a second. Sorry, but we're back now.
We lost sound for a second?
For about 5 seconds.
Do we still not have sound?
We've got sound.
So can they not hear me right now?
They can hear you now.
So they can hear me right now.
Yes.
I recall a central. Are you aware of the issue with the Corsair's engines blowing off way too easily, which causes full loss of control? And if so, do you have plans to address the issue?
The issue's been addressed in the next build.
What?
Yeah.
How did you address it? What happened?
So we've been doing like a general pass on kind of the health of engines in the game, which has meant some were bumped up quite a bit because it just didn't match the overall health of the ship. So we've tried to move the thruster health more in line.
All right, chatters, how is it? Corsair better or worse or same in chat? Because this was an early 320 fix, I believe. Have you had enough time with it, Corsair fans? I know there's some Cutlet people that definitely wanted to fly it. That are here. Blues, I think you're here. Is it decent?
With the general.
I don't know. I haven't played the game in half a year. You're here every day. You're here in this chat every day. Why do people like this exist? We're all Star Citizen fans. So many Star Citizen fans don't play the game.
Ship.
I don't know. I haven't played the game for a full year. Now you guys are lying. Okay.
Well, okay. And when you say the next build, they should see it in the next version.
You haven't
that
flown
goes
it,
out to
Blues?
the
Okay.
PTU. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Where's my list here? I lost my list here. I lost my sound and I lost everything. Let's see. Are trailers
We
for
prefer to
ground
follow the
vehicles
game
a
rather than play it.
possibility?
Yeah.
And if so, that's actually, they just asked the same question 3 times. Are trailers on ground vehicles a possibility? Have you considered just, allowing us to hitch a wagon to the back of
Hell yeah.
our
Cargo-
tumble?
That'd be really cool if you
Cargo vehicles.
could tow your ship or something like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll just stick it on like a flatbed,
Yeah,
and then you've got this little mule pulling around a Vanguard on a flatbed.
yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be fun. And then you can
Yeah, tractor beam your ship onto the flatbed, flatbed your ship to a repair station. Hell yeah, brother.
you can jackknife it.
Yeah.
You try and park a
And then ride over one of the 50,000 rocks that are in your way and fail miserably.
articulated lorry with a Vanguard on the back. Try not to smash into things. That'd be entertaining.
It's a good idea, honestly.
Yeah, so we would have to make the lorry. Again, it's like you can sit there. I mean, it's one of those things.
Somebody has to make the lorry. Somebody has to make enough. Okay, here's the problem with ground vehicles and the reason why they suck in Star Citizen. Content density is so bad in Star Citizen, it's not even funny. The fact that they don't have ground vehicles in Starfield, I actually find kind of hilarious because the content density is really good in that game. So the when you land on a planet, the distance that something is kind of far enough away that a ground vehicle would make that distance feel much shorter and better. And then you can loot goblin like crazy over there, put your stuff in the ground vehicle and drive the ground vehicle back, put it on your ship and transfer the stuff to your ship or whatever, right? But in Star Citizen, the content density of like an outpost, let's say, are hundreds of kilometers away. So the distance on a vehicle from one point of interest to another is so far that Star Citizen has never quite made ground vehicles feel like they make sense. So maybe with derelict settlements, maybe with better thought out cities. Like I think Lorville's kind of too industrial for it to make sense, but they've never quite done a good job of content density to make ground vehicles make sense. As cool of an idea that is, it's only cool in theory because it'll never work in practice in Star Citizen because you don't have a city here and then 10 kilometers down the road another town or something like that, right? Like the distances just don't currently make sense, and roads aren't the solution. It's content density that's the solution, right?
We talk about the distinction between feature, content, and gameplay. It's one thing for you guys to say, "Oh yeah, it'd be cool," but
Yeah, we've got to make it.
it's another team that has to find their schedule and their priorities to make it. But yeah,
It's still a cool idea. If content density was a thing.
Okay, here's a loaded one. I want to remind you that they picked this one.
Oh.
What is CIG's stance on the community's feedback? And is the Fury earmarked for further improvements in relation to this? So a bit of a leading.
Did you pick this one, Rich?
One.
Yes.
One. How do you?
This is my fault.
One. How do you feel about community feedback? And two, are you willing to listen to them and make the Fury better?
I feel on the spot now. I probably should have picked this one. So, I'm really protective to our community feedback, and that's a general feeling across the teams here. Is we really like hearing from the community.
I don't buy that.
So to answer
I don't buy that because the community is so abusive that I imagine that there are, myself included in this, is that there has to be people they've tuned out at this point, right? Because the way people give feedback, I have explained this on this channel 1,000 times, but I will continue to do it. There's a good way to give feedback and there's a bad way to give feedback. I've given bad feedback 1,000 times, and the bad feedback would be telling the developer how to do their job. The good feedback would be, this is fun, and why, and this is not fun, and why. And I think when it comes to the flight side of things, there are some people that are, writing up design documents and shit. And I can imagine that those, unfortunately, as hard as some of those people work on those design documents that they're putting up on Spectrum, they're probably getting ignored, right? And then there's other members of the community that are, just, yelling and screaming. Hello, my name's SaltEMike, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, youtube.com/ at SaltEMike. I'm probably more of one of the yeller types that are just like, this is so frustrating. But I still always try to take the stance of, after blowing off my top for a second, is calming down and being like, this is not fun because, or man, I'm having so much fun with this because. So I think that they absolutely do listen to the community feedback, but it must not be from everybody,
Fury question. So we've tried to balance the Fury for the current game that we have now and where the ships currently fly and where they fit. And we've tried to give it a little bit more of its personality in the current game. But we've got the game we're working on next. For us,
Star Citizen 2!
So we've got Master Modes coming, which is going to allow us to kind of use more of the unique ship identity. And, with that, and as we move towards that, we're going to move the ships more into the identity. So, I can definitely see the Fury moving more to where its main thrusters contribute to more, of the axes on the ship.
Okay. What did he just say? He's just talking about like post-master modes. Like the Fury is designed for present day, and post-master modes is like this next step for them. So they'll be able to make ships feel more unique from there. Currently, most of the ships don't feel very unique. That's all he's saying.
But it was just where the rest of the game currently fits. Because if you have a big game, we've got 100 and something ships in the game. If you add one in there that's really different, it can cause problems for the current ships and also kind of
caveman. They listen. It's just how you say it.
The game. So we have to kind of move everything together. So we move the ship as much as we can in the baseline that we kind of have in the current game, and then we look at where we want to.
I have had wonderfully great experiences with certain devs at this company, and I've had very bad experiences with others. And the bad experiences I've had, in terms of we're doing fantastic things, we're doing great things, they're not the people actually doing the work to make the game better. They're somewhere in between, but the people who are actually doing the work on certain things, anyone at the company that I've actually engaged with, I've engaged a little bit with Richard, but only in Formula One talk, actually, on Twitter. And he's just a really sweet guy. But the people that I've interacted with, so like a Torsten when he stopped by here on the channel, an Elliot, a DJ, every conversation has always been quite, they're listening and they will respond to my feedback for, better, worse, or whatever. Like just say, give their reasons for what's happening, or be kind of like, oh yeah, that idea is interesting. And I've never really had any issues where the developers feel like they're above anybody. I've not quite experienced that. The people who are actually working on the code don't really have that attitude. But elsewhere in the company, sure, I've definitely seen situations where they just think they're better or cooler or whatever. I've definitely got that vibe, but that vibe doesn't come from guys like this. I mean, the vehicle team, maybe Yogi's given that vibe a little bit, but I think you have to understand the perspective of this is something we want to try. Let us finish trying it and then give your feedback, I think, is where they're at right now with like master modes and everything.
And then we start moving all the ships as this big, kind of package of ships that we, kind of tune together, so we tune the light fighters together, the medium fighters, heavy fighters, and move those all together. And then we kind of create more personality on those ships as we go. And then we see how far we can push those limits. But yeah, I can definitely see it flying more on its mains in the future.
I'd love to write up some cool, fun ideas. I mean, it's just, if you're in development, just tell them what's fun and let them roll with it. Let them do their job. Don't do their job for them is basically what I'm saying.
Let's see, some questions from the chat. If this is live, why isn't Chad McKinney on? Because he's on the other side of the world. I'm here with these guys right now.
What the fuck?
Will the 890 jump ever get paints? A question for the content team, not the gameplay team.
Sponge, I'll address this after.
Oh, there was another one. When will the Vanguard series get retractable turrets like concept the last time we saw an animation? Question for the content team, not the gameplay team. Continuing on with the preset questions. Stealth.
Yeah. Question
Is that
mark.
the question?
Yeah.
Stealth. Anything?
I'm going to go stealth right now by being really quiet.
Success.
So we kind of see, like personally, I see stealth as a ship that is, its main ability is to mask itself, so you can hide and you can be sneaky, So it's got that more kind of tactics to it, where you can use the environment to hide, and you can move your resources of the ship to kind of manage that. So you can kind of control how much you're seen in the universe. So you can plan something, whether it's plan to sneak up on someone or just plan to attack someone, and that's how I see stealth in the game. And it's going to become really critical resource network, because that's going to give you really good control over how kind of stealthy you go, because you can be able to take it much further than you can now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, on the resource network thing, there's already talks of like how heat and cooling can influence stealth and emissions. Because essentially with ships, the emissions is going to be really what the stealth is, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing is we've had patches with stealth and we've had patches without stealth. We've kind of come and gone. I think that's why stealth question mark is a good question. It's like, hello?
Yes. So if you can hide, like, I guess there's two kinds of versions of stealth. You're either not there, or people think you're not there, or people think you're something else.
Yeah.
So you could have like emissions that pretend you're some casual cargo hauler, but you're actually a fleet of Idrises, and just to try and pretend that you're not for a while. Like there's stories of like stealth fighters who because of the way the stealth fighters emissions profile is set up,
it looks
like
a
bird. Hit by
bird.
radar signature, and it deflects off all the different faces of the plane, and then it comes back and the radar sees it as like, that's like a pigeon.
Yeah,
that's nothing to worry about. And then suddenly the pigeon turns into a stealth like aircraft for like 2 seconds because it's opened its bay doors, and then closes it again and go, that pigeon turned into a plane for a bit. Maybe we should shoot something at it. So something like that. You can have the two different versions of like, we hide it completely, like clamp the emissions completely so you can't be seen in a big radius. Or you can just blare out like noise and obscure whatever you want. And so like with Resource Network, if you have, if that gets tied into heat and stuff, you can have coolers that are like blaring out loads of IR, for example. They could pretend to be something else. And then if you want to go the other route and then like hide all of those emissions, turn all your coolers off, or like have some kind of thermal shielding around it, and then you just slowly cook
this
in your
sounds
ship
all
it's heating
theory
up. Because
that
that
they're
heat's
not
supposed to go somewhere.
working on currently.
That's what the emission is normally, and if it's not emitting heat, I guess you're just gonna steam slowly. And
as Stengun asks, as a follow-up, why is that pigeon going Mach 5?
Yeah,
I was wondering, Stengun. I was hoping one of you would say it so I didn't have to be the jerk.
it's a very powerful pigeon.
It's not a very good radar operator on that particular ship. That pigeon's going Mach 5. That's one very impressive pigeon.
Why has that pigeon launched a missile at us?
Yeah, no. And how does the invisibility bug factor into all that?
It's very stealthy. It's not the right kind of stealth.
Jared
It's
doesn't
like
know
that
that
old
the
bug we had
invisibility
where
bug might be
all the
fixed.
players could turn into golf balls. Technically,
Oh, I'd forgotten about the golf ball.
yeah, that was
I'd forgotten about
that was difficult to fix.
Has that invisibility bug still going on?
I'm not sure.
And that's not on our teams.
No. The last I heard, I think someone made some progress on fixing one of the many ways that it can happen. So maybe
that's what's really annoying. It was the same thing with the golf ball bug.
Yeah,
There wasn't just one cause. It was actually a myriad of causes.
Yeah.
And so, finding every cause, you find one cause and it actually obscures 3 other causes.
Yeah.
So
They're not wiping, so they didn't fix the duping issues? No. You mistakenly read a Xylo post and actually thought that anything that was said there is actually a thing that's going to happen, or the way things
That's
work.
what bug fixing on complicated situations can be sometimes. You just get, you fix one bug to make it work correctly, and then it turns out working correctly broke 8 other things.
I just know it's very frustrating. But
Yes.
the level of frustrating conversations I've seen internally about that bug over the last several weeks have been.
Yeah.
I mean, that bug is problematic.
Can't imagine it's any better for the players. But, folks are working on it. It's the best I can offer. Aerodynamics. Are
Glad he addressed
aerodynamics
it, though.
planned to be applied to ground vehicles in the future? And if so, will this extend to drafting mechanics?
Yeah. No, it's really cool. If you could drop your ground vehicle out of a ship and it would feel like it was floating because aerodynamics and a shape of the ship. And then we've got much more racing in the game now, so it'd be cool to have a draft. You could draft it behind people, catch them, and pass them because you're in the draft. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I don't think it's currently in the plan.
No,
Slipstreaming?
But it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be part of our kind of goal of moving the ground vehicles to our next version. But really, that'd be our next step. So we'd have, kind of aerodynamics in that. And maybe, we could mix that in with the, moving the ground vehicles to all the power plant systems and stuff, and have a full aerodynamics. But it'll be quite limited, because we don't want to go like full simulation where we're trying to model the aerodynamics and downforce on the ships and on the trucks and stuff like that. But it'd be nice to have the feature where where you can draft, basically.
Yeah, the aerodynamics of the rover being a brick.
Yeah.
The downforce of that.
Yeah, you get quite a draft bit on that ship.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Yeah. If you go down the full sim route of aerodynamics, you can get very, very complicated very quickly. If we have drafting behind someone, and then you pull
Star Citizen, not a sim confirmed.
out, and suddenly you get hit with a whole bunch of wind.
Shut
and then
up.
half of your vehicle is in
YouTube
the wind, half
commenters.
of it's not in the wind.
Yeah.
What does that do to the tires, for example? Does it affect the grip? Does it torque your vehicle around a bit? There's all kinds
You
of.
get flying cars.
You get flying cars, yeah. Yep. Where suddenly all the downforce turns into upforce.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of gameplay implications to it, but like with anything else, it has to be
YouTube
weighed
frogs.
against every single other thing that's going on in the persistent universe, and whether it might work and even be fun in a vacuum. But when you have to put it alongside all these other systems and go, okay, well, how does that affect everything from salvage to FPS gameplay to well, it's not to say that it can't happen or something. It's just
I don't even think it's that. I think it's just too much work.
it's not as simple as just, oh, that's a good idea and we put it in.
Yeah, it's like with when we did aerodynamics for the ships in the first place. That would be like a really big impact feature, because the ships behaving like spaceships when they're close to the ground in atmosphere feels a lot less realistic and interesting. And if you add aerodynamic flight into ships like that, you get a really cool difference in how to get those ships to play. And that's a bigger impact than having fully simulated aerodynamics on the ground vehicles, for example. We can get to similar kinds of things in other ways, but yeah, so which is why it's not been a priority so far. But yeah, it'd be really cool to add that.
How excited are you and the team for the recent Arena Commander changes? Was this something like, yes, finally, or was it like, I wish they were working on other things? It's the question again. You put it on there. How does the team feel about all the recent Arena Commander changes?
Really excited for it.
Really excited for the Arena Commander changes. That DJ guy, not so much.
It's a great place to do combat, and it's. So I've been really pumped about it, and also it's given us a chance to test master modes as well. So that's been really cool for us. So we've been really excited to get that out there. So yeah.
Yeah. We interact a lot with the player experience team, who are, or the vehicle guys in the player experience team, who are really interested in like, in Arena Commander and the way that you can test out how ships behave in 1v1 combat or PvE, like Pirate Swarm and stuff, and you get all of that kind of
endless Vandal
really
Swarm,
like interactions in ships. There's only certain ways that you can actually like
that's
really
Jeff
tell
Sponge.
what the ships are going to do in those kind of interactions, and that's from really testing in that isolated environment. Because a lot of the time in the PU, you don't end up having that very often because of the size and scale and loads of different like roles and stuff that people can do. So you get a really focused environment on that. So that really helps us. And we've been in contact with a bunch of people in the community about like ship balance and stuff in the past as well. So increasing like the playability of Arena Commander and like all the different lobby stuff that they've been doing, and experimental modes. We finally get the players to test out master modes, and then we can like see what the feedback is from that. And then the best way to make like a feature that the players really enjoy is to take player feedback basically, and then you can iterate back and forth and come up with something really cool. So yeah, we're really excited.
I think it begins to finally allow us to realize that original potential of it to be the symbiotic test bed. Well, I mean, obviously we have the PU and the alpha, and then we have the PTU and stuff like this. But Arena Commander is always the promise of it. The true promise of it has always been this focused test bed for the PU, and we got away from that for a while. Like all things, the only constant game development is change. So this return to it in recent months, as we've been waiting for it to go out in 320, and as it will, hopefully soon, is exciting, especially with all the specific modes to drill down on things like the tank and.
Who's in a rush to get 320 out from us, the community? Is anybody in a rush? Like the vibes I have right now, maybe it's because there's other games out there that are fun. What would you rather? Would you rather them rush out 320, or would you rather them fix the litany of known issues in 320, right? And have the experience be decent? Like that whole quality of life initiative that they just said they had. Guys, there are insane amounts of bugs still in 320, right? So Jared just communicated their internal need to push out 320 instead of the actual need to push out 320, which is actually not being pressured by anybody from the community from what I can see. I know maybe my community is a little bit of an echo chamber, but in recent times, it was always push out 320, push out 320, push out 320, or whatever, other patches in the past. I haven't seen that at all. And why is that? Because we have CitizenCon coming, because we have IAE coming and things like that, right? They've already communicated like .1, .2 as far as like their communications go of the things that they already have planned. So they got to put out .0 so they can move on to .1, which is where a ship sale is. So they can move on to .2, which is where another ship sale is, right? The LTP post wasn't very enjoyable to read. It's kind of nerve-wracking, like some things are going to disappear and stuff like that. So it's, I don't know, it's just I don't hear that level of pressure that, like, for example, they might have been feeling with 318. And if your post-mortem, if your quality of life initiative posts are to actually mean anything, they would mean something if you weren't trying to push 320 out with all these problems. But that's exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it for, I'm sure there's game development reasons, like, we got to move on to the next thing or whatever. But it never feels that way, because there's always a ship sale. There's always a free fly. There's always an event, right? And guess what? When's Jumptown? 5 days from now. So it's got to come out before then, or it's not come, or they didn't meet their internal goals for things that don't matter, like doing a Jumptown event, which is pressing a fucking button. Somebody presses a button and turns it on. You know what I mean? Like that's where we're at with this right now. So who needs to prepare the next set for Jumptown? The community team. They have to make their post. They have to make their feedback thread, right? Or whatever. There's no preparation really needed to run a Jumptown event other than pressing the button. So what's the problem here? Why do we have a set date for it? We don't need one. It's just like, come on, man.
Drill down things like gun game and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we don't need to push this
also
patch.
that renewed focus that helps us with like ship racing that has become a real focus as well.
Yeah, we have guys. Anyone saying that like your funding allows them to decouple from like traditional publishing and all that stuff, there is a publisher here, and they're acting exactly like a traditional game studio. No matter what they've said, how they act, they're no different than these, big time people that, many people point out that are ruining gaming in a lot of ways. I think Star Citizen's a lot better than those companies at some things, but certainly not with their like release cadence or, this incessant need to put out things to keep the community engaged, and instead of doing right by the community and, just making a generally more playable game. Right. So
the maps, right, or added some new maps to Arena Commander. So adding that kind of stuff into it as well, that helps a lot with like vehicle handling and stuff, because it opens up really tiny like precision bits of the balance that helps us hone in on like, oh, why does this vehicle feel slightly different to this kind of vehicle? Yeah.
So we're in our last 10 minutes here, so I want to. There have been several questions along this line in the chat here. Zarek Masters is the one that happens to be in front of me. Older ships like the Gladiator.
I see him on Twitter a lot. That guy.
What do you think of the Gladiator? Any chance the Gladiator can get some love? I mean, is the Gladiator perfect right now? Are you happy with the Gladiator? Does its bomb bay doors need some work?
Jumptown's awesome.
Gladiator pilots, these people who have pledged for this vehicle since yay old days.
I mean, it's kind of appreciated that because I was playing it about an hour before I came here.
Okay.
So I was taking a look at it, see what we can improve on it. So, because it definitely can fly better in atmosphere. Its atmosphere flight's a little bit bad right now.
It's got those great atmospheric wings.
Yeah,
that go
it should
like
be
this.
better in atmosphere, right?
And we did some changes to the way the we did some changes. So we did some changes to Fury, and that had an impact on some of the ships in the game. And unfortunately, Gladiator was one of those ships that is kind of impacted. So I'm taking a look at that now of what we can kind of move, to basically improve it, because it's got the mavs that move at the top of the ship, and
that was to support the Fury 180 thrusters that needed a rewrite of some of the thruster rotation code. And so that had some unintended consequences in all the ships that have rotating thrusters. So
I think
there was like the Hornet or something had that as well. Yeah, there was a bunch of them that we had to check and try and get as close to what the shipped version was.
And how about for something even more aerodynamic like the Terrapin? Little floaty brick that can. Any love for the Terrapin?
Okay, man, it doesn't matter what you think. They've literally shown us the button. So, yeah, it's a button.
Any nuggets, any hope we can throw out to people?
So a big focus with Terrapin is actually it's going to be making the most of its VTOL mode. So we've generally tried to make the ships fly as normal with, in like normal mode, they should be able to fly.
Okay.
In atmosphere on the various planets we have. But we're definitely looking at ways we can make the most of those ships with VTOLs on them and give them a little bit more power. So when you're in VTOL mode, you really feel the power of those ships. And to give you more control in VTOL mode. And we have some exciting, so we've got some exciting aerodynamic changes in the future as well. That's going to help kind of reinforce that as well. So yeah, there's definitely some scope to improve the Terrapin.
I'm not excited for those. I'm nervous.
Cool little ship.
I'm excitedly nervous.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
A Terrapin is naturally aerodynamic.
Flying a caterpillar in atmosphere. I'm nervous.
Again, I want to preface this by saying that they picked the questions,
no.
not me.
Oh,
The question is literally, is my favorite ship the best ship? And am I still on track?
This one's on you, Johnny.
yes, and yes.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
you're gonna
Johnny.
pay for that one.
I probably, yeah, yeah.
You also picked something,
Uh-oh.
vision for where pets, dogs, will stay on ships with and without second seat interior. So they're assuming the dogs will go on the second seat. But
I mean,
If you put
Who
it in
the
like the
fuck
little
picked
carry
this
case, and then you
question?
can sit the carry case in the second seat, and then the dog can shoot the turret.
So I want to preface this having seen the question for the first time live right here again. This will be the last time I let the guests pick the questions. We are neither confirming nor denying the existence of dogs in our game.
but I do have,
But pets, you better be, because that was a Kickstarter goal, brother.
have a dog and 4 cats. So
In real life.
Yes, in real life, not in the ships. In, like,
Yo,
real
his
life.
cats are cute as fuck
Okay.
too. I've seen them
So-
on Twitter.
All right. Theory Craftus, then you included it, so we'll go with it.
Oh, Primal doesn't know.
Assuming dog pets do get added to the game, where do they go in the ship?
Well, I put my dog on the engineering station. To be fair, I think she do a pretty good job.
When she doesn't throw up on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and my cats can just be ornaments.
I mean, the cats would sit on the pedals, is what the cats would do,
Yeah.
really.
Cats would sit on the keyboard. If there was a keyboard on the ship, cats would sit on it.
At least at least I could blame them for crashing it.
Yeah. Or they just sit and like paw at the MFDs.
Yeah.
No, don't turn my shields off. No, go away.
Yep, they would accident wherever there are buttons, a
that's a
cat would
satisfactory
hit
answer.
it.
Jared's deflating.
All right, no, we're going to one of the hard ones now since you wasted a question on that. You wasted a question on that. How do you determine how well or bad a vehicle handles?
Whoa.
Yeah.
So the good and the bad.
Go ahead. I'm gonna sit back. You go ahead.
So when we have a shipping concepting phase, we basically outline what the purpose of that ship is. And then from that, we discuss what loadout it should have, what weapons it should have, what size components it should have. And then the ship gets concepted. So we're in control of that. And then
Don't they
when we
just
go
like
through,
put it in
concept
between
phase
two
and
ships,
visual art
basically?
style, the art starts to lead some of where the ship goes as well. So we've got like the purpose of the ship, but then the look of the ship, it needs to feel a certain way to match its kind of visual appearance. And then we've got like a really good kind of matrix of like where our current ships are, both in terms of the flight, the combat power. As we learn more about the game as well, and how we move all the ships, as we learn the systems more and more, and and improve the core features of the game, we change the balance, so we're moving all the ships together. Then we look at where that ship should fit, and we don't just want every ship to be the new best ship in the game that does everything the best. Does
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. But the marketing team does. The marketing team wants you to do that. Hey, by the way, did you guys know that the Fury is the best racing ship in the game? Did anybody know that the Fury LX is the big racing ship in the game? Did you also know that there's a ship sale coming up for the Fury LX? Did you know that the Fury LX was coming out? Hey, guys, the Crusader Ares Ion. Did you guys know that ship is literally the best dogfighter in the game? Just kidding. Now it's not. Oh wait, it is again. Did you guys know that the some ship is the Carrack Killer? I don't even remember the name of the ship. Do you guys know that this ship is going to kill the current best ship for exploration in the game? We have a killer of that ship. Did you guys know that? Literally every single ship that they release is always the best ship, except for the Cutlass Steel. Good example.
always choices, and that can be manufacturer based.
Yep, the Odyssey.
Choices that can be visual kind of choices on the ship, and where you put the thrusters, where you put the wings, and how they look. So it's really a lot of different factors that come into this. And
yeah, the Prowler.
It's where we put the weapons. It's where we put the turret. Well, if a ship does have a turret, it's where we put it, and that defines, how good that turret system is on that particular ship. And then there's just, we've got kind of core numbers of health, for example. So we've got a really good idea where the current ships are. So we go, right, well, we want the ships for here, so it requires this, but it depends how the ship's built. So the different parts on the ship and how the damages propagate throughout the ship.
The Antares is a
So
good
we have to work with all
example
these
as well,
factors,
where they failed.
So yeah, that's kind of how we balance. And then obviously we do some testing internally to make sure the ship kind of fits what we originally set out it to be, and make sure it fits in that particular area. But it's not, I don't like to say this ship's just better than the Vanguard. For example, I like to go, well, it could beat the Vanguard in this situation if you did this particular thing, and that's the difficult balance, I guess.
I think that's a good perspective, but I don't think that that's necessarily reality, right? I think that that's nice in theory, but what tends to happen is it still creates metas, and it kind of, there's so many ships that it's really hard to balance, and there's no way that there's not going to be some weird metas.
Hopefully that's a good defense there.
Good answer.
Jared has nothing to add.
I'm going to follow up because you did so well with that. How do you do that knowing new systems are coming down the pipe, like master modes and resource management and stuff? How do you take that delicate calculus you just described and do something for the game today, but also leaving yourself room for tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the really difficult things about doing this.
Yeah,
is
do the work 14
we've got to think
times.
about the game now. We've got to think about the game we're going to have for the next release, but then we've also got to think about kind of really long term as well. So we kind of do the current game, and we kind of have a base understanding of where the current game is and where the ships are, and we try and do our best to maintain that, but also include a little bit of future-proofing ourselves, really, that we don't have to go back and redo every single ship in every single release, for example. So we'll try and move certain ships. That's why sometimes probably, we do get questions about certain ship balance not quite fitting, but that's probably why, because it is a work in progress game. This is a game where we can't just retune 100 and something ships every single release. It's just not possible to do. But we do try and keep it as one unit that's moving. And then we look at...
I don't think they've necessarily succeeded
we
at
look
that.
at things like master modes and stuff like that. So what we try and do is we try and have these things in the game now for us, and we will balance the game for the future as well. And then when it comes to it, we can turn those systems on, for the players, which is what we've done with the experimental modes.
The thing is once Star Citizen is more feature complete, then they can take the time. Because I hope for there to be a day when there's enough features in the game that they don't feel a need to deliver a quarterly patch with content. You know what I mean? So then the patches are more balancing and bug fixing and more larger content patches, once a year or so on.
We've got the Gladius there. Well, we did have the Gladius there. And basically what we did was we just turned it on with master modes on, and the tuning was there. So we're kind of moving the game towards that for the future like that. But it is a very fragile piece sometimes, and it is quite challenging. There's days where you're like, oh my God, I've got to throw all the balance that I've done over the last 5 years at this company, for these new features and stuff, because we've got so much coming in the game and so much is going to change. But it's also really exciting because it's a constant challenge as well. So.
Okay.
So
well, at least he still enjoys it and still motivated.
Here on this. So sometimes when a ship performs one way, it's performing, whether that's good or bad, it's performing that way because it's been tuned in anticipation of this thing that's coming down the line.
Oh, bro, come on. Don't make excuses for the countless mistakes that have been made. People make mistakes. That's what happens.
It's coming down the line.
Just fucking own up to it.
It hasn't arrived yet and whatnot. It may be underperforming today or perhaps overperforming today, because whatever this thing that's coming down the line is either going to bring it in line or it's going to bring it up to where it's supposed to be. So it's not always a bug.
It's okay to make mistakes.
It's not always a missing feature. It's not always just an idiotic decision by somebody on the team. It's just like the sources of the invisibility bug we talked about. It can actually be a multiple sources.
This is why I don't believe the post-mortem or anything, because there's always these stupid caveats that make no sense. You know what? That was an oversight. One of the best things, and they haven't addressed it at all, which is kind of shit. When somebody says, why isn't there a second exit on the MSR? And they went, oh shit. You know what? You're right. are bad. That was like such a breath of fresh air. Now, they haven't done anything with it, classic CIG, but it was just like, wow. You know, but we always get these disco claimers, which is just
all
like
conspiring together to make a
it's
particular
so
ship or
old
vehicle
and
perform a
I'm
certain
so
way
tired
at
of
a
hearing
certain
this
time. And it's one of the big, never-ending challenges of running a live game in the middle of our development.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with all these features that come down the line, sometimes you need to look at the balance. What would make it perfect or really good now, and then how would we want that to be really good in the future? And sometimes the numbers are so different that there's just no hope. Like, or you can like try and get the numbers somewhere in the middle, or you can have one set of numbers and just a completely another set of numbers.
Yeah.
And yeah, because we have so many ships and so many different.
Yeah, and none of that is on them. Like, they didn't decide to have 100 ships. Somebody else did, and they have to deal with it, and it sucks. That's why I don't like necessarily want to blame these guys. Like, mistakes happen. How can you not make mistakes when there's hundreds of ships? You know what I mean? Like, there is some issues here with like the way they've communicated some things around master modes, and it's ready when it's ready. We're working on Squadron 42, blah 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 blah. That I don't think was necessarily the best, but honestly, the expectations for everything to be perfectly balanced is just stupid.
Systems. Sometimes some things just,
fall through the
how
cracks.
they are.
I think we can all agree the best ship in a dogfight should be the Rock DS. I told them I would say something nice about the Rock DS. That was the best I could come up with. Johnny, Rich, thanks for hanging out with us, taking the time out of your busy Friday at the end of the week to be here on Star Citizen Live. Folks, if you haven't checked it out, be sure you watch.
Wait, what about what about the other guy?
Yesterday's Inside Star Citizen. It's part 1 of our design brief on the cargo career. Lots of big changes coming. Freight elevators, the instance and persistent hangars, all kinds of new cargo boxes with different properties.
Next
and of
week,
course,
I'm excited.
The big kind of headline thing of that, being able to stick just about anything.
No
that's
thanks
physical
for Richard,
on
man.
a
What the
cargo
fuck?
grid. Yeah, I've already seen a number of Twitch streams and YouTube videos today, expounding on the possibilities, and yes, the possibilities. So be sure you check that out. Part 2 is next week, and then of course remember that CitizenCon, the now 2-day event emanating from Los Angeles, California, on October 21st and 22nd, is just 5 weeks away. About 5 weeks away. If you're wondering why some of us pulled our hair out, it's probably because of that. So for Johnny and Rich, I'm Jared.
There we go.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
Take care. I mean, I thought that episode was okay. There's not much you could do with the vehicle things, but I thought that they chose a couple good questions, and it wasn't too bad. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but yeah.